On his 3-day visit to the United Kingdom, President Donald Trump delivered more than a diplomatic handshake. Standing beside British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, Trump projected warmth, unity, and bold pronouncements on some of the most urgent crises facing the world today. From NATO's spending to the war in Ukraine, from the devastation in Gaza to whispers of America's return to Afghanistan, Trump's words were both familiar and startling. For Starmer, it was a chance to underscore Britain's role as first partner to the United States in trade, defense, and technology. For Trump, it was an opportunity to showcase strength, settle scores, and reinforce his worldview on the global stage. Yet beneath the ceremonial optics were 5 striking takeaways that reveal the complexity, contradictions, and controversies surrounding America's foreign policy under Trump. This is the story of what happened when Washington and London came together, and why it matters far beyond Downing Street. Chapter 1. A reset in the special relationship. The optics were unmistakable, Trump and Starmer side by side, offering words of unity after months of speculation about strains in the US-UK relationship. Trump praised the hospitality of his British hosts, while Starmer described the United States as Britain's first partner across trade, defense, and technology. It was a rhetorical reset for an alliance tested by Brexit, Trump's aggressive trade policies, and diverging approaches to Ukraine. Historically, the US-UK special relationship has endured through wars, crises, and political upheavals. Churchill and Roosevelt built it in World War II, Reagan and Thatcher revitalized it in the Cold War, and Blair and Bush deepened it during the War on Terror. Now, Trump and Starmer sought to project continuity. For Starmer, the meeting reassured British citizens nervous about standing alone after leaving the EU. For Trump, it reinforced his image as a statesman welcomed abroad. But beneath the smiles lay the unspoken reality. Unity on camera does not erase the sharp policy differences that still linger. Chapter 2. Ukraine. Disappointment with Putin. When asked about the war in Ukraine, Trump's words carried a tone of frustration. "I thought it would be easiest because of my relationship with President Putin," he admitted. "But he's let me down. He's really let me down." It was a rare moment of candor from a president who has often boasted of his ties to Moscow. Trump positioned himself as someone personally disappointed, not just geopolitically, but almost emotionally betrayed. For Starmer, the message was more traditional. The UK remains committed to leading a coalition of the willing to support Ukraine militarily, politically, and financially. Together, the two leaders pledged to increase pressure on Russia, though Trump's wavering commitment left observers uncertain. The war in Ukraine has tested Western resolve for nearly 3 years. Trump's remarks signaled a leader wrestling with the limits of personal diplomacy, while Starmer framed the conflict as a fight for Europe's survival. The contrast revealed the complexities of aligning two allies with overlapping, but not identical priorities. Chapter 3. Gaza and the Shadow of October 7th. The Gaza conflict loomed large in their talks, though Trump and Starmer approached it differently. Trump invoked Hamas's October 7th attack repeatedly, calling it one of the worst days in the history of humanity. For him, the massacre of 1,200 Israelis and the kidnapping of over 200 hostages remained the central reference point. He avoided direct criticism of Israel's ongoing campaign, which has killed more than 65,000 Palestinians and left Gaza in ruins. Starmer, too, condemned Hamas, earning a literal pat on the back from Trump. But their differences surfaced over Britain's recognition of a Palestinian state, a pledge Trump opposes. Neither leader denounced Israeli policies or addressed the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza. Critics argued that their remarks reflected a blind spot in Western diplomacy, a failure to reckon with the scale of Palestinian suffering. Yet Trump reiterated his confidence that it'll all get done right, insisting an end to the war was close. For families in Gaza, those words may have rung hollow. Chapter 4. The Price of Recognition. Starmer's pledge to recognize Palestine represents a subtle but significant divergence. Britain, once a colonial power in the Middle East, has long played an outsized role in the region's history. Recognition of a Palestinian state would align the UK with much of Europe, signaling impatience with stalled peace efforts. Trump, however, views such recognition as premature and potentially rewarding Hamas. This disagreement underscores broader transatlantic debates. Should recognition come as leverage for negotiations, or only after a final settlement? By voicing opposition, Trump sought to position himself as Israel's staunchest defender, a stance that plays well with his domestic base. Yet for Starmer, recognition is about principle and pragmatism, signaling Britain's desire to chart its own course. This fault line in their otherwise united front reveals how even close allies can diverge on issues of history, identity, and justice. Chapter 5, NATO, From Skeptic to Champion. One of the most striking moments of the trip was Trump's praise for NATO. Long viewed as a skeptic of the alliance, he lauded its new leader, Mark Rutte, and applauded members for pledging to spend 5% of their GDP on defense. "We're sending a lot of weapons to NATO," Trump said, emphasizing that the alliance was now paying in full. For Europeans who once feared Trump might abandon NATO, these remarks were reassuring, though some analysts cautioned they may reflect political convenience rather than a lasting shift. NATO has been the cornerstone of transatlantic security since 1949. Trump's earlier critiques centered on burden sharing, accusing allies of freeloading. Now he claims credit for forcing them to spend more. Starmer embraced the praise, keen to present Britain as a reliable NATO partner. Together, they reinforced the alliance's unity in the face of Russian aggression. Yet Trump's unpredictability means that questions about his long-term commitment still linger beneath the surface. Chapter 6, Afghanistan and the Bagram Gambit. Trump's criticism of America's 2021 withdrawal from Afghanistan is well known. This time he went further, hinting at a possible return. "We're trying to get it back," he said of the Bagram Air Base. That could be a little breaking news. He justified the move by citing Bagram's proximity to China's nuclear facilities. The idea of returning to Afghanistan shocked many observers. The U.S. has not recognized the Taliban government that seized power after the withdrawal, and re-establishing a presence would require a dramatic diplomatic and military shift. For Trump, the statement fit a pattern, criticize Biden, highlight American strength, and hint at bold moves that may or may not materialize. For Starmer, the remark was delicate. Britain lost soldiers in Afghanistan and has little appetite for re-engagement. Yet the suggestion of an American return raised questions about whether the ghosts of the forever war might once again shape global strategy. Chapter 7, Free Speech, Media, and Jimmy Kimmel. Amid weighty discussions of war and alliances, Trump also found time to weigh in on pop culture. He addressed the firing of television host Jimmy Kimmel, who had made controversial comments linking conservatives to the killing of right-wing influencer Charlie Kirk. Trump insisted Kimmel was sacked for poor ratings, calling him not a talented person. The episode highlighted tensions over free speech in America. Critics warned that political pressure to fire media figures set a dangerous precedent. Supporters argued that Kimmel's remarks were inappropriate. By weighing in, Trump once again blurred the line between politics and entertainment. His dismissal of Kimmel reflected both personal grievance and a broader cultural war. For international audiences, it was a reminder that U.S. politics is often as much about spectacle as substance. For Starmer, standing beside Trump during these remarks may have been awkward, underscoring the unpredictability of sharing a stage with the American president. Chapter 8, The Optics of Unity. Diplomacy is as much about appearances as outcomes. The Trump-Starmer press conference projected warmth and unity, but every handshake, pat on the back, and smile was carefully scrutinized. For Britain, the images reassured citizens that the U.S. remained a close ally despite Brexit isolation. For Trump, the optics reinforced his stature as a world leader embraced by Europe. Yet seasoned observers noted the gaps: differing views on Palestine, uncertainty on Ukraine, and unease about Afghanistan. The choreography of unity concealed a more complex reality beneath. Still, in an era where images often matter more than text, the optics achieved their purpose. The special relationship looked alive and well, at least for the cameras. Chapter 9, The Global Repercussions. The Trump-Starmer meeting was not just bilateral theater. Its echoes reached Moscow, Beijing, Tehran, and beyond. Russia took note of Trump's disappointment with Putin, interpreting it as a signal that Washington's patience is thinning. China bristled at the mention of Bagram, aware of its strategic implications. Arab states monitored the Gaza remarks, weighing how far US-UK alignment might limit Palestinian recognition. NATO allies welcomed Trump's praise but remained wary of his volatility. The global chessboard shifted subtly but meaningfully. The meeting was a reminder that when Washington and London speak together, the world listens, even when it questions what comes next. Chapter 10: What it all means. So what are the 5 key takeaways? First, the US-UK relationship remains strong, at least symbolically. Second, Trump's disappointment with Putin reveals the difficulty of ending the Ukraine war. Third, Gaza remains unresolved, with Western leaders reluctant to criticize Israel directly. Fourth, Trump's embrace of NATO reflects both pragmatism and political theater. Fifth, his Afghanistan remarks raise questions about America's future footprint. Add to that his foray into free speech debates, and the picture is clear. Trump's diplomacy is unpredictable, theatrical, and deeply personal. For Starmer, it was a chance to showcase Britain's relevance. For Trump, it was another stage to project strength. For the world, it was a reminder that US leadership still matters, for better or worse. The Trump-Starmer meeting in the UK was more than a ceremonial display of flags and speeches. It was a glimpse into the future of Western diplomacy, complex, contradictory, and full of surprises. Trump's words on Ukraine, Gaza, NATO, and Afghanistan may not rewrite policy overnight, but they reveal the worldview of a leader who thrives on spectacle and ultimatum. Starmer, steady and pragmatic, sought to anchor Britain to America's orbit. Together they projected unity, but unity is not the same as alignment. The 5 takeaways from their meeting underscore how the special relationship endures, not because leaders always agree, but because the world demands they find common ground. The question now is whether that ground is strong enough to withstand the storms ahead.